Okay, students, here is video part 2. This is the drawing portraits in action. So, first thing that I'm going to do is make sure everything is lined up, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle. I told you we're going to work on sketching skills too. So, I have my pinky finger. My pinky finger I'm using to kind of establish, there we go, using my pinky finger to establish kind of where my circle is going to go, and then I'm going to lightly sketch that in. Now, I want you to notice something. You are not looking at a perfect circle. You are looking at several ovals that somehow come together and kind of, in some crazy world, make a circle. I used my shoulder to go ahead and do this. My elbow is stiff, and really my wrist is stiff. And I am very, very, very lightly touching the paper to establish where I want this. The reason I'm doing this lightly is because eventually I'm probably going to erase some of these lines. I'm going to change some of these lines. I might blend some of these lines. The next thing, I told you that my eyes were in the middle, kind of like that. Once again, I want this line to be pretty light because I want to go back and I want to lighten it later. Now, the kind of portrait we're doing is not an artistic portrait necessarily. It is most definitely a kind of like a scientific study, if you will. So you're going to be kind of weird and staring looking, but you're going to get the basics of how this works. Now, halfway between my eyes, here, and my chin here, we said that this was the bottom of our nose. And so for the bottom of my nose, I just kind of do a little curvy thing. And then halfway between the bottom of my nose and my chin is going to be the line that is between my top lip and my bottom lip. Now I've made this wider. This should be a little bit wider than my nose. Now I'm going to start with my lips. I'm going to worry about my eyes in a couple of minutes. I have this line that comes straight down in the middle. What I want you to do is take a look in the mirror, and I want you to determine what that shape is in between your lips. So mine is actually, I have like a real kind of deep V, and my lip kind of comes down like this. Some people have more of like wide lips. Some people have less of a V and more of a curve. So it's important that you look at that particular shape for you. So this is my generic person. And sometimes, if you really look at this line right here, some of us have this line that kind of curves down. Mine curves down a little bit. Some of us have one that curves up. Some of us have kind of a bump here, and it kind of curves down. So look and see what that line looks for you, and try to draw your own, because the second portrait should be a little bit more individualistic. We want you to start letting go of some of the symbols that we have gotten accustomed to, and we want you to start really kind of making connection with what you're drawing. Now, this bottom lip, a lot of times this bottom lip, there isn't a definitive line. There is, your lip sticks out. You can even touch it. This lip sticks out, and there's actually a shadow because usually this section of your, so with the lip pooching out, oftentimes this little ball of your chin pooches out, and this right here is right up against your bottom teeth, and there's very little flesh in there. So a lot of times that bottom lip is more of a shadow. And if you are a guy, if you draw this line fully, this line starts to look like lipstick. And ladies, you know, sometimes we use lip liner to really define that, to give us a really pouty looking bottom lip, but that's not truly the case. Also, this top lip, usually it is the way it's angled, the way our teeth kind of angle it, it's actually in deeper shadow, and our bottom lip kind of protrudes out. So you're going to have to look in the mirror and see what your own personal look is. But a lot of times that top lip is kind of shadowed. And if you look at like Batman cartoons, they usually draw the men in there with a dark upper lip and no bottom lip. There might be a line for like the jaw or something. But so there we have a set of lips. And whether they look like yours or not, we'll find out. Okay, so nose. All of us have this middle section of our nose. And then we have a line or a circle or some sort of small shape here and here to indicate where our nostrils are. And then we usually have the edges of our nostrils. And so you're going to have to pull up the mirror. You're going to have to take a look and see what your nostril shape is. Get a feeling based on your lips how wide your nose should be or how narrow your nose should be. This bottom line here, right here, is often a shadow because this middle portion of our nose is the part that protrudes out. Our noses are tricky to draw. I love drawing them just because I think they're kind of fun. But when I was younger, I really, really found them challenging to draw because it was hard for me to understand because I couldn't see the lines. And so the definitive lines you see are generally along the edges of your nostrils. It might be along the inside curvature of your nostril. It might be down here or maybe not. Mine actually is kind of weird where I can't actually see that part right there very well. Sometimes these right here, if you look real carefully, there's a little bit of shadowing that comes down here because this part is flush up against your teeth and this part is fleshy and pulls away from your face a little bit. So sometimes this is all a little bit shadowy under here, and that's how you really start to make something look dimensional. Some of us have this membrane right here, and some of us don't. Some of us have a really, really deep one, like a real deep groove, and some of you have a very, very narrow groove. And then most of us have this section of our mouth like this, where this part of our lip is flat up against our teeth. There's very little flesh. And then this right here starts to become, like it starts to come out from our face where we have little fat pockets. And those fat pockets are fantastic because they mean you look young. And when you start to age and get older, those fat pockets start to disappear. So that fat pocket is not a bad thing. Don't freak out by it. But that helps establish kind of where stuff is. Our noses do different things. So some of you might have a nose that kind of curves in. I saw one guy this week, he has a great nose and he has a curvature here. And then up here, when I'm getting close up to where my eyes are, if you feel on your actual face, you feel the edge of your brow bone. So your brow bone wraps around, your nose kind of goes right into your brow bone and it wraps around. And so I'm using that center line to help kind of establish how this is going to go. And if you watched the first video and you looked carefully, you should have noticed my nose was completely asymmetrical and my eyes are actually completely asymmetrical. And I'm totally not worried about it. I think it's kind of cool. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of blending, and I'll show you a portrait that I did earlier. I actually have found it pleasurable to pull up like a Google Meet and draw from the picture that I see on the Google Meet, using that as my mirror, if you will, because I can set my computer up where I have interesting lighting. And if you can get really interesting lighting, your portraits become something, they become really interesting. Okay, so now I have established where my eyes should fit in here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of establish here and establish here. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to look in the mirror and you're going to need to figure out what works for you and what works for your face. I am going to go ahead and draw some eyebrows in here. Your eyebrows are individual hairs, and if you look at them in the mirror, you will start to notice that, there's those individual hairs. If you can draw them in the direction that they're going, it just makes for some interesting drawings. Frida Kahlo, she's the queen of the eyebrow and has done the most amazing paintings of her most amazing unibrow. And so maybe you have some hairs coming in here. So play around with that and see what you got. Okay, so eyes get a little scary for some people. And when I was your all's age, they were a little bit scary for me. And I had a college professor who said, you draw one eye and the other eye together at the same time. So that's going to establish where that is. That's going to establish, bing, top of the eye is probably going to be there. I don't have the bottom eye. And I'm going to take this kind of eyeball and see if they're about the same size. And then I'm going to bring this up. Now, I have two different shaped eyes. I've drawn myself enough times that I know this. I have one that kind of comes up at a slope and down. I have one that kind of comes up and kind of curves around. And so just for the sake of argument, I'm going to make these a little bit different. So that's the top of a football, if you will. It's going to curve down here and to the bottom of a football, or a lemon. So if you've drawn a lemon or a football, you have already got this shape. Now, if you notice, I'm drawing light, and then I'm going to go back and I kind of darken in my lines. I'm not doing a huge amount of erasing. And in fact, I have these crazy lines here. I totally left them all in here, and I'm not worried about them. I'm going to draw the curvature of my actual eyeball, because your eyeball is an actual sphere, and it tucks into your head, and you have these lovely, wonderful eyelids that hold it into place. So you can see the edge of the sphere right here, and in the corners of your eyes, if you look carefully, there is the two little pockets. It's a little pocket of skin that's created with your top eyelid and your bottom eyelid, and that's usually shaded in, and that is also where your tear ducts are. And then along the top of your eye, you have this fold of skin. When I close my eye, all of the skin covers my eye, and then when I open it, it all tucks up back here. Well, okay, it used to do that. I'm starting to get droopy eyes. But look and see how yours is shaped. Yours is shaped in a lot of parts by your family, and it really kind of changes how you look. Okay, so there's our footballs, and your eyes are a football, a basketball. So here's my basketball. Your basketball, if you drew the whole basketball, so let's say the whole basketball, you're drawing, you look really surprised and a little freaked out. If you draw the basketball, and the basketball, I call it a basketball because it's a circle. The top of the basketball is blocked off by the top eyelid, and the bottom of the basketball just sits right along the bottom eyelid. If you're laughing, that bottom eyelid kind of comes up like that and blocks even more of that. So just so you know that. If you're trying to make somebody look like they're kind of quirking a little smile, you might bring up just the side of their lips a little bit. You might bring up this whole cheek, and that cheek pushes up against that eyelid and kind of pushes that up over top of the colored part of your eye. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger over here and make me look a little dead in the eye instead of a little surprised and freaked out. Let me see. I got something really wonky going on there. I do have something really wonky going on there. So without doing too much work, I'm going to drop this eyelid a little bit. I'll erase a little bit of this up here at the top. I'm going to see what we got and see if that lines up a little bit better. How are we looking now? Okay, a little bit better. I am sitting down and my arm is kind of stretched out, and I'm drawing this from kind of a weird angle. And so sometimes when I draw this way, my projects are a little bit skewed. Okay, so there's my basketball. And then inside of my basketball, there is a target. Woo! And I'm looking really kind of freaked out. And so that target, and I call it a target because it fits right in the center of that basketball. I also call it a black baseball. So when I'm drawing in class or when I was teaching elementary, I did that. And then your eyes have a shiny spot on them because your eyes are wet. If your eyes weren't wet, you wouldn't be able to open and close them. That shiny spot is determined by your the shape of the lights in your room. So whatever lights are giving you the glow on your eyes, that's going to determine the shape of that. So when I taught elementary school, I said you have a football, you have a basketball, you have a baseball, and then you have a golf ball. So sometimes it's a circle, sometimes it's a line. It's up to you to really, really look carefully and see. Now your person looks kind of dead and staring. This part of your eye right here, the basketball part of your eye, the baseball part of your eye should be black. The basketball part of your eye should be the color of your eye. So it's blue, it's brown, it's hazel, it's gray, it's gold, it's green. If you have funky contacts, maybe it's a smoky white. I don't know. But if you give it a little bit of color, then you look a little bit, or a little bit of a shade, it looks a little bit less kind of freaky. So there, we got a couple of staring eyes. They're going to stare into your soul. Your eyebrows often kind of cover up your eyes a little bit. Most people, you have this area under your eyes that's a little bit shadowy because your eyeball kind of curves out. Your cheek curves out, and then you have this part that just kind of sinks in a little bit. Eyelashes, if you look very carefully, you might see some eyelashes out on the side. If you have mascara on, you might see lots of eyelashes. Sometimes we see some eyelashes just along here, but not usually a lot. And I would not actually draw really big ones unless you have mascara on. Look in the mirror and really look to see how your eyelashes actually really do grow. And I'm going back and I am shadowing some more of this, if you notice that. And I might be shadowing some of this. Now, so we got an egg head and we have a portrait happening here. So look at yourself in your mirror and see if your skull kind of comes in a little bit narrower, closer to your eyes. See if it pops out a little bit right below your eyes, like right here and here. Most of the time we do that because, my very fake, not anatomical skull, our brow bones are closer to the edges of our eyes, and then we have cheekbones, and those cheekbones stick out. And then as we are younger, we have softer, rounder cheeks, and then as we get older, we lose some of that cheek flesh. Or some of that cheek flesh, in my case, is starting to settle down here a little bit. So I'm going to look and see what my chin looks like. Maybe I have a jaw that comes out a little bit more. But I'm going to use that. I'm also going to flip my drawing over. The reason I do that is that I'm going to teach you guys to flip your drawings over. Sometimes you can see things upside down because you're less worried about some things than other things. I'm going to let this kind of be a little bit darker down here. Totally could be a police sketch artist. This looks like a scary police sketch. Okay, so I said in my last video that your ears are almost the length of your nose from top to bottom. So up here, close to there, I'm going to do a little letter N. Now it's an N without the stick because this right here becomes the stick. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a backwards letter N. And then down here on either side of my nose, against the side of my face, I'm going to do a letter U. And I'm going to do a little letter U. And then I'm going to look at my actual picture or look at myself in the mirror, and I'm going to determine how my ears really kind of lay against the side of my head. And they might
be a little bit different on either side. Your ears might come out a little bit more. They might be a little bit closer. A lot of times you have a top, like the top of your earlobe kind of sticks out, and then it kind of goes in a little bit here. Here it might stick out, and here it might go in a little bit. So for everybody who's a little bit scared to make your nose the length that your nose should be, remember you really, really, really maybe like to smell coffee. Maybe you really, really like to smell... Good afternoon, moderators. I hope everyone had a fantastic day today. We will be... Okay, so we had announcements coming on, and my planning is 6 periods, so that's why you heard that. I'm going to draw the neck in here really quick. So we're going to start over here by... I'm going to start here by the ears, because we talked about the neck being back by the back of your head, and not growing out of your chin. And then you have those muscles, your shoulder muscles. You can give your neck more curvature if you need to. And this also allows you to establish where your t-shirt might fall. And your t-shirt is going to be lifted up from your whatever shirt. It could be a collar. So look and see what it looks like. You know, there might be stitches along here. Might be stitches along here. And these might be the ribbing around here. So you can play around with that. Your neck is under your chin. Your face usually protrudes out beyond your neck. And so your neck is often shadowed. So really kind of look at the shadows of your neck and determine if the light's coming in this way, then maybe the side's more shadowy. So you can play around with that. If you're using a wood pencil, the nice thing about a wood pencil is that you can you can get, you know, as you let the lead run down and it's not as pointy and it's real kind of soft on there, you can get kind of an easier transition between values if you're trying to get some shadow happening here. At this time, we will be dismissing. They keep coming on with announcements, and then I keep pausing it and then bringing you back on here. So look at your neck. Anatomically, necks start to get kind of interesting. There's different things that are happening underneath the flesh there, and some of us can see it, and some of us can't. So it's up to you to kind of figure that out. So play around with that. Now your hair, if you have your eyebrows here, and the top of your head is up here. If you started your hairline here, you're going to have to look in the mirror and see if it is halfway between. The majority of us, our hairline is up a little bit higher. So look to see where your hairline is. Your hairline is often a relatively straight line. That's where if you have bangs, you pull them straight back and you look to see what this angle is. Usually it's not a perfect curve. Sometimes some people have a little bit of a widow's peak, so you have a little bit of a point here. If you were drawing my husband, he has hair here. He is balding here and here, and so this would go back way far, more like that. So I don't know if some of you have a dad that's got that kind of going on, but you have different things happening with your hairline. Now, you have some people with short hair. I'm going to go ahead. So you're going to determine, first of all, if you have very, very short hair, maybe you have spiky hair or something. That line, you don't want to leave that line necessarily. That line starts to look a little goofy if you have very, very short hair. So I would go back and I would actually erase lines. So instead of just like scrubbing it off, I would just, instead of drawing the lines, I would actually just kind of erase where they go. And that would just kind of start to build in some stuff. I don't know. Gosh, I feel like this person should have a mohawk at this point. But you're basically drawing hair in the direction in which it's growing. Maybe your hair's curly, and maybe you have these real tiny, soft little C's that are up here close to your head. Or maybe they get bigger. So really look to see how your hair actually grows and start drawing it in that way. Now, as I get up here to the top, where like the top of my head is, if I draw my hair like real flat against my head, it's either going to look super, super, super short. So if you have really, really, really short hair, that's how you're going to go ahead and take care of it. If you have wet hair, it's going to be really flat against your head too. If you have hair that is dry, it's a little puffier against the back of your head. So when I drew mine here, this line was under here for the top of my head, and I started bringing the hair out beyond that. And then I also have a cowlick over here. So I started kind of pooching up where my hair is over there. So next thing, not all of you have short hair. Some of you have long hair. So if you have long hair, determine where you part your hair. So does your hair part in the middle? Does your hair part on the side? If your hair parts wherever it is, so let's say your hair part is about there. Your hair probably is going to drape, or maybe it curls. Along the side of your head. And notice I'm going to totally leave the ears on there. The reason that I want the ear on there is that ear is going to help me determine how far out my hair should come. If you have curly hair, think about your curly hair as an actual shape. And a lot of times, that shape kind of determines the actual